In our news bulletin for this evening, Niue is reviewing its building code and manual. The European Union-funded renewable energy project looks to minimize costs for government. The Catholic Mission parishioners initiate a fundraiser for the Ha'apai Islands. Niue's National Building Code is being reviewed this week as a drive to update and make buildings on the island more resilient to the impacts of disasters and climate-related incidents. The review has been supported by the Secretariat of the Pacific Community SOPAC Division and the Niue government. Niue is one of the first islands in the Pacific to warrant a review of the Building Code and Manual and have been commended for their foresight. We spoke with a consultant who's conducting the review today.
We've been building houses and buildings for thousands of years, and so the fundamentals of what we do are well understood within our community. There are certain differences when we live in the Pacific. The cyclones, in fact, do make life harder for all of us. They actually make buildings more expensive because we have to protect ourselves against cyclones. And people who live in other countries, in the middle of New Zealand, for example, they don't have to worry about wind speeds that we do, so their houses can cost less. The builders that build in Niue have all learnt their trade well in New Zealand and here, and know the code pretty thoroughly. And in my experience, they are carrying out the requirements pretty well.
Mr. Clark says the existing building code and manual was written some 20 years ago, back in 1990, and Niue was one of the first islands to adopt it in 1992. He says with the changes over time, there will need to be some tweaks to make the Act, Code and Manual relevant to the current building needs and developments.
Okay, well, the Act is the overriding article which makes the building code enforceable, and it defines the roles of the various people who are going to enforce it, such as the Public Works Department. And the manual is an attempt to explain what's required in the code in a day-to-day fashion for the man and woman in the street. The tweaking is only in some of the structural areas and some of the materials that are used, perhaps things like roof screws, which are important for the cyclone point of view. And one of the other things that I see as important is the introduction of the requirement to place smoke detectors in houses, which can prevent loss of life, which is very important to us all.
Another problem, according to Fraser Clark, is that buildings get old. There needs to be a process where buildings are reviewed on a regular basis to ensure structural integrity. The proposed changes would be minor to incorporate and factor in advancements in materials and technology since the initial code was developed.
At this stage, we're like 3/4 of the way through our assignment, and I would be predicting that I'll be back in about a month's time or a month and a half's time with a draft of my final report. I'll go away from that set of consultations and make the document finally proof-ready to present to SOPAC, SPC, who have in fact engaged us to do this. And then that will be presented back to the Government of Niue for consideration and decisions on what to do next.
Fraser says they are not anticipating any major changes but will recommend alterations and useful additions. As Niue increases the use of renewable energy, the European Union-funded solar power project near the airport is now about 80% complete. Government estimates that this solar power plant will mean savings of about $56,000 to government, with 90 kilowatts of power redirected to the national power grid. CBS Power Solutions from Fiji have been contracted to supply and install the solar panels and believe that this is a good move for the environment.
This is a environmental free system, and at this time we are focusing more towards renewable energy. So it's a maintenance free system basically. It doesn't require much maintenance on this because it's a stationary system, and it's free power from sun. Okay, this has taken almost 6 weeks now, just because due to the bad weather we couldn't do much a whole of last week, so that has been delayed for a week. But actually this project was supposed to be handed over and in 6 weeks of time.
This is another large-scale solar generating project for Niue, with a similar project funded by the Japanese government. But according to the CBS project manager, Ravnesh Chand, they have extensive experience in the Pacific providing power solutions, but Niue will be a first for this particular type of system.
This is a first Pacific country which we are doing a 90 kilowatt grid connect without the battery. So this is a good grid connect in the Pacific for Niue.
Mr. Chan says that the system should last about 25 years with low maintenance costs, and checks will be carried out every 6 to 12 months. CBS got the contract ahead of many other companies in a competitive process, and this keeps them motivated to complete the project on time.
There's a lot of other companies who actually bid for this, and we have to spend a lot of time in preparing our tenders and submitting our tenders, and it takes a lot of time involved. And like I said, there's some other good companies who are also competing with us. So we have to take every point and just to get the things right. And
Mr. Chan says that the project has made significant progress with assistance from the Public Works Department in preparing the land area and concrete slabs. If all goes according to plan, the plant will be joined and connected to the main grid by next week. The Niue Catholic Mission has initiated a fundraiser towards helping families in Ha'apai, raising over $9,000. The community bingo held at the Alofi North Hall was packed with people keen to support a worthy cause. The Ha'apai Islands was devastated by Cyclone Ian in January that tore through the outer islands, leaving a path of destruction with many people displaced. For the Catholic parishioners on the island, they took the challenge on board to start up the cause that will go towards the rebuild, and they will identify ways to get these funds to those who need it the most. According to the spokesperson for this parish, Fukutongahai, they were thankful for the whole community coming together to provide fish, local produce, cooked and raw foods, as well as money that will go towards helping families in Ha'apai in their time of need. The working group expressed their sincere thanks and gratitude to all who supported the fundraising activity one way or another. And those are our news stories for this news bulletin and for this week. Do enjoy the weekend ahead and join us again next time on BCN next week.